Hi, I am making vegetarian scrambled eggs. So we're using tofu as a substitute for eggs. And I get a lot of questions about how to cook with tofu. So I thought I would try to maybe do a few more recipes using tofu in simple ways to really, add some additional protein that's plant-based to your eating plan. I'm Judy Matusky and I am a registered dietitian as well as a culinary nutritionist, and I'm so happy to be back cooking with you. I'm back in my kitchen and it has been a lot of fun because I've been doing a lot of experimenting. I love to sort of go out and research and find recipes for you, and I'll do all the tasting and the testing and then happy to bring them to you. As always, we're usually trying to use recipes that have at least 5-ish ingredients. Some are certainly a little bit more than that, but generally they're, the ingredient list is short and the preparation time is not real long. All right, so we are going to get at it. This is another recipe from Ottolenghi Simple. I made one last week with the cauliflower egg salad. This is another one of his. It's just a quick little scramble, and scrambled tofu as a substitute for scrambled eggs is nothing really new. It's been around for a long time. Typically, it's sort of made with turmeric because it adds sort of that yellow flavor, that yellow color that makes it seem like, it actually is eggs, because it tends to look a lot like scrambled eggs. So this recipe is super, super easy. What I did do, because of just for time, we are using, this calls for onions and some sauteed onions to caramelize them. Now, I had some leftover cabbage from our garden and I wanted to use it. So what I did, the recipe calls for two pretty good sized onions that you will cook down and slice thin and cook down and caramelize. I used one onion and I used about maybe a half of this small head of cabbage, and that's what I have sauteing right now. So I just did it ahead of time because it takes about 10 minutes to really get them a little bit brown and caramelized. We're not trying to crisp them up. We're not trying to, really get a real deep dark brown on them, but generally we're just trying to give them a little bit of extra sweetness by caramelizing them. So I did do that. So basically this is just some thinly sliced onion and some cabbage, but the recipe really just calls for all onion. I just wanted to use up that cabbage. All right, so while you have that on your stove and it's on like a medium low heat, I don't have it real high. I'm gonna just turn it up a little bit because I had it really low before we started. While that's cooking, then we're gonna make the little side salad. And we'll talk a little bit about the ingredients that are in this, but it is a little bit spicy depending on the type of harissa you're using. And it's nice to sort of complement that with a nice, cool, bright, fresh salad. And in his book, he's using a cucumber salad. So I have some sliced cucumbers all ready to go. I'm just gonna sort of cube them in maybe 1-inch bite-sized pieces. And we're gonna just put those right into a bowl. And this is such a nice compliment, because again, you're looking for something that when you're having something that's a little bit spicy, it is nice to have something that's really fresh and kind of clean and bright tasting. So I am going to use cilantro. I just bought a whole batch of it. One thing that I just want to remind you to do, which I did not do when I brought this home from the market, it was still wrapped up and I went to use it, and all of the cilantro that was sort of like really tightly squeezed together with the twist tie, it was starting to get, that sort of slimy brown look, and that's just because it had no air and it was wet. So just as a quick reminder to really extend the shelf life of your herbs, make sure you untwist them, open them up, give them some space to breathe, wrap them in just like a damp paper towel, and then I put them right back into the bag that they came in, and I pop them in my refrigerator, and they'll last a good week. So just remember to do that. So I am using cilantro. I love cilantro. The rest of my family does not love cilantro, but they don't happen to be around right now. So I'm gonna use cilantro this time. If you're not a cilantro fan, then just go ahead and use parsley. That's what I would normally sow. And this is really a real rough chop, and I am gonna use some of the stems. You don't wanna throw those away. Depending on how many cucumbers you're using, I'm going to use, maybe half of a cup of the cilantro with, I I think I had maybe, that was probably 3, you know, medium size. They're sort of like the smaller cucumbers. So you don't want this real finely chopped. You sort of want a little rough chop on this parsley. And you want your, you know, your cucumbers in a nice big, you know, a bite-sized piece. All right, so we have the cilantro in here, and it's really very simple. I have a lime that I have already cut in half. It's about a tablespoon or 2 of lime juice right into the bowl. And then a little bit of salt. And then we're going to just finish it with a little drizzle of olive oil. Probably, I don't know, this is probably a tablespoon of olive oil. And maybe that was like 1 or 2 tablespoons of lime juice that I squeezed in. Just add a little bit more. And then just for fun, because again, I have them, you can use toasted sesame seeds. I have both toasted sesame seeds and I have black sesame seeds that it was just in my pantry. So I'm just going to sprinkle both on here. And that's pretty much it. The salad in Ottolenghi's book calls for adding some avocado, maybe a little chili pepper. I don't know. I don't always have avocados around. That's just something I don't buy regularly. So I found that just this little simple herb cucumber salad with a little olive oil, a little lime juice, and some sesame seeds is really all you need. That's fine. So let me just sit that off to the side. All right. So we have this browning up, and that's all you do. So this was probably going for about 10 minutes before I jumped on. I'm going to turn it down again because now it's really starting to. And so once you have this going, I'm going to pull it off just for a few minutes while I talk to you a little bit about the ingredients. All right, so this calls for a harissa. Harissa is, I guess, originated in Tunisia. It's basically like a chili pepper spice paste. I picked up one out at the market. I think I might have been at the Euro Market for this one, but you can find it in most supermarkets in like their specialty section. It's much more available now than it used to be. So harissa is basically just it's a great little, you know, jarred sauce to have on hand because it adds some spice. It adds a nice flavor because it's really a blend of different types of chili peppers and spices. Now, this is a Tunisian harissa, and that tends to be a little hotter. So if you really want a spicy, hot harissa, if you find one that's more, you know, we'll say Tunisian, tends to be a little hotter. If you want something a little more mild, I was in Whole Foods the other day, so I found one that was a mild harissa. And the more mild harissas have a little more tomato. Usually it's either tomato added or red bell peppers. So it kind of cuts the heat a little bit. So I used, when I made this a couple times before, I used the Tunisian, but today I'm going to use the more mild harissa. So I'm going to pull it back over, and because I'm using the mild, I'm going to use at least 2 tablespoons, maybe even a little bit more, because I know I can, because it's not going to be real hot. For the other one, I used maybe 1.5 tablespoons because I didn't want it to be like really, really hot. So we're just going to mix this in with the onions, and it would typically just be onions, but I have cabbage in here too, so it's a little bit onions and cabbage. And we're going to stir that around and just basically kind of heating it up. Now we're going to add the tofu. So you can see the only thing that takes a longer time is really kind of caramelizing and cooking down those onions. Once that's done, this is like literally 3 minutes at the most. So now we're going to add the tofu. We have the harissa added. You can use silken tofu, which is what the original recipe calls for, or a firm tofu. I preferred it with the firm tofu. So it's a whole block. This is a 16-ounce block of tofu. This is firm. I like the firm better because I like it, for me, it just has a little more texture. And you can just break this up with your hands. So we're just going to bring it over here, and I'm just going to crumble it up so that it really, we want to get it so that it resembles scrambled eggs. And all we're doing is we're just going to warm this tofu with the onion. We don't have to really do more than that, so that's what makes this so nice and quick. Now, tofu is an excellent plant-based protein source. It's made from soy milk, similar to kind of how cheese is made. It usually is made with a calcium broth or water, and what's nice about that is that it does up the calcium content of the tofu. So it is a pretty good source of calcium. The other thing is that there's a slight difference in the nutritional profile of like a firm, extra firm, soft, or silken tofu. The silken tofu is really nice in smoothies. It's very custardy. It's great in cubed in like a miso soup. That's a great way. I like to cube silken tofu up and put it in tomato sauce when I'm making pasta. It is a little lower in protein. So it has about half the protein per serving compared to something like a firm tofu. So firm tofu has about 9 grams of protein in a serving, which is really good. All right, so I'm just breaking this up. So it's just a little variations, but when it comes to tofu, it's, you're really working with a blank canvas. If you've used it, it has its own little flavor, but it's so subtle. It'll just take on whatever flavor you're adding to it. So harissa, being a nice, spicy, really intensely flavored sauce or paste that is a nice complement to tofu, because that's what you want. You want something that's going to bring a lot of flavor to the dish so that the tofu will really kind of pick that up. All right, so I have the tofu. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit now. I have the tofu in here, and I'm just going to toss it around with the, see if you can hopefully see that. I'm just tossing it around with the onions and that were with the harissa. And now I am going to use a little bit of salt, and remember, this is up to you. Salt as needed. If you are sensitive to salt and you're trying to reduce, particularly if there's, high blood pressure involved, then you want to keep that sodium intake a little bit lower. But, I'd say about a half of a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more of salt, depending on what you need. If you want to use a little less, that's fine. All right, so now all you're doing, I'm just turning the heat up a little bit, and I'm just going to warm this tofu through so that it picks up the flavor of the harissa. And if you feel like you need a little bit more of the harissa sauce, go ahead, by all means, add a little bit more. All right, and it looks really, really pretty because it takes on this orange hue from the harissa. Okay, let me just clear this off. So I just want to show you. So a great way to serve this would be to serve it with maybe like toasted sourdough bread would be great. Or if you wanted to, you could do like a nice toasted whole grain toast. You could serve it right on top of it. And so you're making like a little toast with it if you want to serve it. I mean, this is great for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is a really any meal dish. So we'll take so you're just kind of going to serve it with your cucumber salad off to the side. And then I don't have any bread toasted right now, but if I was making toast, I love it served on top of toast. That's just the way I would definitely serve this. But it's up to you. You can skip the toast if you prefer not to add that. And then we're just going to add our tofu to the plate. And if you wanted to make this a little bit more substantial, it's a great idea to add that toast. Okay, let me take this off. All right, and then if you wanted to, you could sprinkle this with a little bit more cilantro. You could drizzle with a little more harissa if you wanted to be a little bit spicier. But it's really a great little fast, easy, simple, very few ingredients. The only ingredient that you have to sort of look for would be that harissa. So next time you're out or you want to order online, it's available. Pick the spice level that you want, and please enjoy. I will be back next week. I'm hopefully going to be back on a regular schedule on Thursdays. I've been having so much fun experimenting with some new recipes, so I have a lot of great, fun, easy, healthy, delicious recipes that I'll be bringing to you over the next couple of weeks. I will be playing a little bit around with a little bit more tofu or some soy-based proteins, as well as just giving some tips on sauces to sort of have jarred sauces that really would be great to have in your refrigerator or your pantry, so that you can take something that is simple like tofu and very quickly turn it into a main dish. All right, well, have a great week, and I will catch up with you guys later. Bye-bye now.